Yolanda, I know one of the ways in which you have lifted up the exercise of creativity and spiritual practice is with respect to testimony itself. Can you give us an example of how there can be a creative exercise in which testimony is lifted up?
Yes, actually I can. It's something called the machine, and it can be found actually in a book called Theater of the Oppressed. And so just recently, actually this past weekend, I was in Chicago for the Religious Education Association meeting, our annual meeting, and our theme was religion and education in the unmaking of violence. And at the very end of the conference on Sunday morning, the end of the plenary session, one of the things that we did was to engage in putting together this machine and then what it would look like in the unmaking of this machine. So we invited about, the conference leaders, actually, those who were doing the plenary, invited about 7 or 8 people to come forward and to illustrate, again, this is testimony, to illustrate how violence impacts our world and impacts our community. So for example, there was one person came up and she bent over and another person put their foot on their neck. And she kept, kind of forcing her foot down. Another example was a person who was trying to eat, and every time she got ready to eat, somebody would block her from eating. And then there was someone who was reading the paper. And so there were several different illustrations, but they were all together, which formed this picture of violence that happens within our communities. So then the next phase, as these people are still acting out these different types of forms of violence, we invited 7 or 8 people to come forward and to begin to dismantle this machine of violence. And so someone came up and took the foot off of the lady's leg, and off of the lady's neck, and walked that person off. The person who was blocking the woman from eating, someone just kind of stopped his hand, turned him around, and walked him off until the entire machine was dismantled. And that is a creative way of testifying, first of all, of the violence, what it looks like, and testifying in terms of what we can do to begin to reverse that. And then, of course, the floor is open for people to talk about that experience. What did it feel like to be a part of it? What did it feel like to watch it? What did it feel like as it was being built and as it was dismantling? And then what does that mean for us in terms of where do we go from here, and how can we begin to be more effective and more engaged in dismantling violence in our own lives and communities?